The following is a paid program. The content is provided by the advertiser. WPSL, its staff, management, and ownership are not responsible for the content. Investment involves risk. Prior to making any investment, an investor should meet suitability requirements. Past results are not necessarily indicative of future performance. Neither the opinions expressed nor the information provided constitutes a recommendation to purchase or provide investment advice. The material presented is not a substitute for obtaining professional advice from a qualified person or firm. Securities offered through Centaurus Financial, member FINRA and SIPC. And now, the host of the Team Martek Hour, Joe Martek.
Not making my stomach feel good. Are we on, brother? Well, why don't we talk about?
I'm not sure what he's on, but he's on.
Hey, well, whatever you were talking about, we were all listening.
Well, I'm so happy for you. 340-1590, 340-1590.
You're coming out strong with that phone number. Usually it's 20 minutes into the show.
Well, I've had people call in and say,
he
Martek,
wasn't ready, so he's faking it.
You don't tell people the phone number often. How are we ever going to call you if you don't tell the phone number? So
that's true.
So
what was that number again?
340-1590. I am Joe Martek. Sitting next to me is Dan Woron. We also have the magnificent producer, Ms. Veronica.
I almost missed the show today. Did you see that?
Yeah, you were back in the hinterlands.
Yeah, I was back there in production.
Poor Cliff
playing.
had to start pushing buttons, and he says, "Man, I can't find you."
It's a big building.
What happens is he's getting old too, so we understand. The memory kind of goes, and among other things. No, right. Back in '04.
Yes, back to the show.
Dan Woron, independent insurance agent, Greg Fasula, attorney, and Joe Martek, financial advisor, said, hey, let's start doing radio shows.
It was a good decision, Joe, because let's face it, the primary goal of the show was to let people have the opportunity to call and ask questions,
right.
Throw out some new stuff every once in a while as far as information. Plus, it gave us a chance to talk about politics or whatever was on our mind. So it's been a lot of fun. I've really enjoyed doing the show.
Well, you and I both have enjoyed it more than anybody else on the team.
I think more than the rest of the team.
The other ones, we have to drag them in from time to time.
They're too busy working.
In fact, Greg was here last weekend, and that's pretty good. He tries once a month.
He tries to make a show once a month.
But he hates it when I pick on him about being a liberal.
He'll tell you he's a moderate.
I know. However.
You think he's listening to Comey give his answers to all the questions right now?
I was.
I was too. I was listening
to
it on the way
earlier,
when they
yeah.
asked Comey, and he said that's classified information.
Everything will be classified information. He doesn't have to take the fifth. He just says that's classified.
That's it. Well, Aunt Hillary is a little upset with him.
Well, Did
you hear her?
Because she had nothing to do with losing. Nothing.
No,
absolutely
it was
nothing.
other than
it was
being the
everyone
worst.
else's fault.
Comey and the Russians.
Other than being the worst candidate they've ever had since Dukakis maybe.
Poor Greg, if he was here right now, he'd start steaming a little bit. But that's okay.
I think she'd give Dukakis a run for being the worst candidate that they've had that I'm aware of.
Well, that's that. See, now just in case you don't know, Dan and I are a bit leaning just a hair on the conservative side. Would you say that's fair, Dan?
Well, it all depends on what your description of conservative is. I mean, I believe that the government certainly has a position, but I think we should be more self-sufficient and take care of ourselves and not look to Uncle Sugar to resolve all the problems of the world. They shouldn't have to do that.
Do you mean to tell me you think that a $20 trillion deficit is not a good thing?
It's a terrible thing because it puts the burden on my children and grandchildren on things that they have never even seen or been part of.
I'm not going to tell the whole million, billion, trillion story, but I love this part. A trillion seconds, tick, 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 let's go down to a real second, is 32,000 years.
That's a long time.
Times 20.
Yeah.
I mean,
at $100 a second, if you're throwing in $100 bills, it doesn't take long.
I'm telling you, it's just amazing that this thing is this big, and nobody really pays attention because our checkbooks are missing no zeros. So millions, billions, trillions just don't add up to the average person.
Well, here's the scary thing, Joe. What if they decide to, and as we know, they have been artificially controlling inflation by telling you there is none.
Right.
All right. So what they've done is they've taken all the things that we consume, gas, food,
right.
pharmaceuticals. So they said, oh, don't count that.
Right.
Don't count. Only count things that you buy once in a lifetime, and we can count those.
Yeah.
And then we can tell you that inflation is flat or very low, and then you'll believe us.
Yeah, what you have to do is talk to the young mother with 3 kids that goes into the grocery store and tell her there's no inflation.
There's no inflation.
Yeah.
Now, here's the terrible thing. Let's suppose they decide to let inflation run wild, where $20 trillion doesn't seem like much, and we'll be like Germany before World War II when it took, a million marks to get a loaf of bread.
And literally, and what happens is as inflation starts to sneak in, the interest rate will continue to go up, which now represents 6 to 7% of our total budget.
Just the interest.
Just the interest on the debt. Forget the debt itself.
Now, how about all those companies I hear on TV all the time that if you're really in debt, you could call them and they will help
They'll
you.
negotiate.
Could we not call them for the government?
Oh, why don't they just negotiate with the people in the first place? Why do we need a middleman?
Oh,
Well,
we don't.
That's the thing I don't get.
You got to understand this. Let's talk about a stockbroker.
Okay.
Now, if you're a sophisticated investor and you have studied this stuff for years, you don't need a broker.
But don't you think that to become a sophisticated investor is going to cost you a lot of money for the education and all the bad deals you're going to make?
No kidding. See, what happens is, though, it does happen. Like I have some buds that are extremely good investors, and I actually counsel with them. Now, what happens is...
Now, let me ask you this. Are they helping you or you're helping them?
Probably both.
It's a little bit of both.
Okay.
Because what we do is we bounce things off and we have different opinions based on different criteria. But the key thing that I have, the people that I, quote, counsel with are not young people. These are all people that have 30, 40, 50 years of experience, and they've gone through all of this stuff to get where they are today. Now, maybe 30, 40, 50 years ago, they needed a lot of help and education to get going, because if they'd have tried it on their own, it's a whole different ballgame.
Well, what my dad used to say was wisdom is an accumulation of mistakes.
And that's what it is.
So here's a bunch of guys who've lived a long time.
Yeah.
They probably made some mistakes. They say the first time you do it's a mistake. The second time it's not a mistake. It's you chose to do it. So you can go and you can get a book education. You can learn stuff, but it's totally different in the real world where you're doing these things. And I believe it does take time to accumulate wisdom, gut instinct, knowledge, market timing. All those things play into what you do.
Nothing comes easy. If it does, I'm happy for you, and maybe you're Bieber or Madonna or somebody that got lucky and everything just worked well for you in life.
Yeah, but those folks need to be careful too, because just as easily as it came, it can go.
Well, look how many people we've read about over just my short lifetime. People who've made vast fortunes, and I would say mostly, from what I can remember, were either sports figures or celebrities.
Sure, and that money came really fast,
came quick,
really
and
young.
went real quick. My posse spent all my money. I don't know where it all went.
Right.
Well, and that happens. Well, also we talked about this. Our liberal attorney Greg, who's only non-liberal about one major subject, and that is education. Free education, he's 100% against, because anything that's free has no value.
But don't forget, Joe, it is cheaper for me to get you a college education than it is to put you in prison.
But still, it's
And that's sad.
And it really, even if they say it's free, I mean, you could say that public education is free.
Somebody's paying for it.
Somebody's paying for it.
There's no such thing as
so
free.
it's really not
well,
free
here comes
anyway.
our $20 trillion deficit again. Whether it's the whole picture is a mess. Now, the economy's humming along. Everything is looking pretty good.
But if the government makes more money than it's ever made, which it is, by the way, it's making more revenue than it's ever made, but they spend more than they make, it doesn't matter. It's still deficit. So what happens, my dad used to say, hey, listen, when they start talking about the puppies and the babies, reach for your wallet because they're coming. And what happens is, we have a politician who has an agenda. They all have agendas. Of
course.
And the agenda is good, and we think that should be supported, and we support it. And then the next politician comes along with his agenda, and they support it, and all of a sudden we're doing everything that you
Shouldn't
can
the
imagine.
agenda, though, be the majority of what the people want? I mean, that's
Quote.
kind of why you vote.
Well, quote, that's exactly right. However, that's not our system.
No.
But our system could change. Our system wasn't always like this. If you
Right.
go back just a short 100 years, they took tiny bit of money for taxes. Okay, so we kept most of our money. You know what I think, and this is just my opinion, I think that we've become lazy. And what I mean by that is, it used to be, Joe, if you were down and out and you were my neighbor, I took care of you till you got up and about.
Sure.
At one point in time, I said, I love you, Joe, but I don't have time for you. Here, Uncle Sam, you take care of my good friend Joe. Here's my $1.
Right,
And they said, oh, we'll be happy to take care of Joe, Dan. You just give us that $1. And then they came back and said, Dan, that $1 you wanted to give to Joe, it became a nickel because we had to spend it all for all of our
Other
carrying
stuff,
costs.
right.
So we need a lot more dollars, and that's how it all started. And they take so much of our money, we don't have a clue.
So Dan Woron, independent insurance
Does that make
agent.
me conservative?
A little bit.
You know, both. I think we also.
Or is it common sense?
But I don't think that makes me conservative.
No,
I think it makes it like
sense.
you should pay your own way, and you should work and not have more kids than you can afford to have. And it's not that I don't love children.
As Michael Jackson put it very eloquently, if you can't feed your baby, then don't have a baby.
Boy, that makes a tough decision, doesn't it?
Michael Jackson.
The key thing I think that many of us were raised in a work ethic home.
Mm-hmm.
We were not taught to borrow 5, spend 9.
No.
We were not taught that. We were taught pay your way, pay your bills, take care of everything. If you have to work harder, work harder.
But see, there was also pride in all of that.
Yeah,
You took
yeah.
pride in knowing that you paid for it. You worked hard. You achieved something.
Yeah,
Even if it's just to borrow, a couple $1,000s for your first nice car.
Yeah.
Well,
You
listen, I
paid
can
for it.
remember.
Yeah, you're right.
I went to an elementary school, and all my friends went to the same school, and we were all pretty poor. But we really didn't realize how poor we were because everybody was equally poor.
Mm-hmm.
Then we went to middle school, or junior high back then, and they brought kids in from all over the place. And that's when we realized, hey, it's a lot of kids that have stuff that we don't have. So there were these shoes I wanted. I remember them. They were Bostonian Wegian shoes with the tassels.
I had a pair of Bostonians.
And I said, I got to have those. And my dad took me to the shoe store. They were $20. He said, I make $60 a week. He goes, I love you, but I can't spend 20 of my 60 on your shoes. But he had a friend who had a little pure gas station, and he got me a job making $5 a day. And my first week, I bought my shoes, and I've been working.
I was
going to
ask you, were they out of style by the time
Oh
you
no,
ordered
no,
them?
no! They're still in style.
Okay.
They're still, they just don't fit anymore.
I actually still have a pair at my house.
I love my Bostonians. They just didn't last very long. But they were good looking.
Oh,
They
they
felt
were-
good, nice and soft leather. Hey, you're bringing back some memories.
Yeah, I'm trying.
I had a new. Anyway, by the way, the three of us, Greg Fasula, attorney, Dan Woron, independent insurance agent, Joe Martek, financial advisor, started doing the shows. And then over a period of time, we added Ms. Victoria Lloyd Remax of Stewart because real estate became a monster subject, especially during the height of the recession, which brought us into Mike Paulus, mortgage broker, which became an even bigger subject during the height of the recession. And we undoubtedly have educated thousands of people because of these radio shows, this one and our other one, which I won't mention, WCNO 89.9 FM at 4 o'clock today, Christian
kill
radio.
me.
That we've been able to help a lot of people, and I think that's been our goal. And it's, the magnificent thing is getting paid to help people. This is the greatest job in the whole world. And when you can make their lives better, and in fact, let me just bring up a subject that happened this week. And Dan and I, we have multiple clients, and we have circumstances that come in that we take for granted. But every once in a while, we shouldn't take them for granted. And one happened this week. Got a client who's a widow and a daughter, and they're both living in their home together. And they had me come over to see them. And the mother says, well, I'm going to put my daughter on my house because one day I'm going to die, and I want her to have the house. And I said, well, let's take a few minutes and let me explain why that might not be the best idea in the whole world. I said, number one, what'd you pay for your house? I'm not going to give you the exact figures, but let's say it was $50,000. And I said, what's it worth now? It's worth $100,000. Okay. Now, if you die today and you leave that house to your daughter, there's no tax. But if you put your daughter's name on that house as a partner and she goes to sell it after you die, her basis is
It's a 50.
$50,000. So she would have to pay tax on the $50,000 worth of profit. So I said, this is not really the best idea. And you have another potential maybe problem called a homestead. Under a homestead rules, you have to live in the house. Well, if you both do, that's okay, and that can work. But what if one doesn't, and you put them on the house? That could void your homestead. And the county doesn't like it at all when you have a homesteaded property that doesn't qualify as a homestead, and they go back.
They come after you.
They come after you, and they can sue you. They can attach. They can I mean, a lot of things can happen.
Now,
So-
don't forget, Joe, when you have your primary residence and you sell it, there's a lot of capital gain you can make if you've lived in it for a certain amount of time that you don't pay any tax on.
Here comes the key. Understand this, but when it's inherited,
Now, what about a trust?
okay, that's where I was going.
Okay.
It's funny you should bring that up. Now, literally, and what Dan was just saying, let's say we buy this house for $100,000 and later on we sell it for $500,000. And we're a husband and wife. We made $400,000 on the house. Well, under the rules today, that's all tax-free money.
You're golden. Yeah, you're good to go. But if you inherit it,
If you inherit it, it's a whole different ballgame.
Okay, so if it transfers from a husband and wife, one passes away, now the other one is the sole owner, no problem.
Nope.
But if it goes from that parent to a child,
There's still no problem.
okay.
Now, understand this. But if I add this child to my deed
today,
today,
Okay.
it's just like we're going back and I have a partner that is not my primary residence, we could have a potential tax problem. So I said to them, look, a trust is the way to go. You put that house in a trust, you leave it to your daughter. When you die, she inherits it. There's no tax.
yeah. And what if she has money in the bank? What would be a nice, easy way to transfer the money in the bank?
Basically, there's another thing that can happen, and I mentioned to them, but they already had their checking account set up with a TOD,
Okay.
which was wonderful.
Now, don't just say TOD because most people listening don't have a clue what that means.
Well, theirs didn't say TOD, it said POD,
Now, what does that
pay
mean?
on death.
Pay on death.
Which is the same thing. And the daughter says, I wondered what that was all this time.
Now, the other problem, too, with just adding the name to the deed is if that daughter were involved in a lawsuit, then that would be...
You got another
Potentially,
problem.
Yeah.
absolutely.
See, here comes the situation that you really muddy the water when it can be very clean and clear if you do it properly. So, and I know her mom's heart was good. The intentions
The
are
intent
good,
was good.
But the key is this: it can all be accomplished without the potential of a problem. So, what Dan was saying earlier, that if your bank, your checkbook, your savings account, your CDs don't have a designation called TOD, transfer on death, you need to talk to your bank and say, hey, do it. Why? Well, otherwise it could be subject to probate.
Probably would be.
Probably would be. Who wants to go through probate? Nobody except attorneys.
It's painful and expensive.
Yeah. I mean, it can take 6 months, which is not abnormal for probate. That's if everything goes right. And attorneys are allowed to charge 3% of, not allowed, the regs say this is a normal fee, is 3% of the value of the estate.
So on $1 million probatable
That's
estate, it's
30 grand. So
That's
what
a lot of
hap-
money.
And the biggest single items that are subject to probate usually are income-producing properties, rental properties, investment properties. You can also put this same TOD agreement on a brokerage account, a stock account, which I automatically do for every client. Sometimes it's a joint transfer on death. Sometimes it's a single transfer on death. We name the beneficiaries. In most times, if you have an IRA, a 401k, a 403b, all of the retirement accounts, most of the people that I know, and I'm not talking just the brokers, but most of the companies, the vendors, whether it's a brokerage account or an insurance company or a mutual fund, they demand that you have beneficiaries written down, because if you don't, that money now is going to be subject to
Now,
probate.
could you, if you already had a trust, could your trust be the beneficiary?
Yeah, well, absolutely.
Sure.
And what happens is the trust very often is the beneficiary.
I mean, in case the beneficiary situation might
Well,
change.
Here's what happens. Let's talk about a trust. A trust is an inanimate object that has all the rights and authorities of a person. So
But
let's
it has no assets till you assign him or put him
And
in
it
there.
can't go shopping.
So here it is. Let's say this table that I'm sitting in front of is a trust. and I take my assets and I give them to the table and I stack them up. Now, the table has no mind. It can't do anything that I don't tell it to do because I own the table, which means I am the trustee. So everything that's on that table, I have to make the decision to do. Buy, sell, keep, whatever. Now, I die. I have named a successor trustee. The successor trustee now owns that table, and it says what the successor trustee is supposed to do with all that stuff, because that successor trustee is written down in that document, says, here's what you do when I die. Sometimes it says, I want you to give so much money a month for the rest of this one's life. Sometimes it says, split all the money up and spend it. Sometimes it says, give so much to charity every year for the next 5. You can say anything you want. Sometimes I've seen parents go and say, hey, I want my grandkids to have an education fund, but if they don't go to college, they don't get it. Because
who would get it?
Well, the key is this, and very often I've seen them do this. The child can have money to help with education expenses, subject to the trustee, but if they don't go to school, they can have that money when they're 30 or 35. Let me tell you, when you're 16, 18 years old, nobody lives to be 30
Now,
or 35.
how far in advance do you have to think way down the road? Because, okay, so if we're going, this kid is a student age when I pass, but they're not going to college, so now they have to wait till 35. What if they pass between their 35? Then what happens to the money?
It has other people named. There's a succession. And a good attorney is going to draft it in such a way that if all these different people die, there's a succession.
It goes on and on and on.
A trust never dies until it's broke. When the money's gone, like I had a client years ago, she was worth multi-millions of dollars. She had 2 kids. She didn't trust either one of her kids. She said, I want each one of these kids to get X number of dollars a year when I die. And I said, you got a problem. She goes, what? And I said, the trust's never going to run out of money.
And that's really not a bad problem.
Yeah, I think it's a pretty good problem.
No, but here's what happened is there was no place for that money to go.
After the child died.
That's right. There was no succession. So
Well, wouldn't it go to their children?
If they
it has
to.
to say
Okay, well,
that.
they better get busy.
But it may not. It may not because it depends how the trust is drafted. Understand, all of these documents, all of these things control everything that can be done.
And that's where a guy like Greg comes in.
Amen. So what I said to the client, I said, look, the bottom line is you get when Greg does these things, you're also going to get a power of attorney, which your daughter needs to have for you. You're going to have a health care surrogate, which your daughter needs to have so she can make health decisions for you. You get a living will, which says unplug you or keep you plugged in. They have what's called a pour-over will, which means in case you screwed up and forgot to put something in, we can put something in. And then Greg would automatically take the deed and have it re-registered in the name of the trust so that it was nice and legal.
Now, what if you did all that stuff when you used to live up north or some other state? And like so many people, you dreamed of coming down to Florida to retire, and you come down. That doesn't mean your will is going to, meets the requirements of a Florida will. You should have that reviewed.
The key, what I understand, and I'm not an attorney, and Greg's not here, but let me just speak. A trust doesn't seem to have the long-term problems that a will has. Florida has different rules for wills, and every so many years they add a wrinkle or subtract a wrinkle.
You think it's because that lawyers are the ones who make the rules, and it sort of gives them some extra
That would
revenue?
Now, couldn't you just go back to that state and settle it there, or?
I don't know. You're a resident here.
No, you're not a
Okay.
resident there
You
anymore.
went and died here.
Hey, let me tell you. Let's say you did it in New York,
Okay,
and you live in Florida. You don't want to die in New York.
right.
You got New York
That's true.
taxes.
Well, we would take that into consideration.
Don't ship them back.
Don't ship them back. Now, the key thing is a good financial advisor and a good attorney is going to help you make sure you make the right decisions, not only for you, but more importantly for your heirs. One of the blessings and curse of money, if you have none, that can be a curse, but it can be a blessing because there's nobody to fight over it. But if you've got lots of money, that's a blessing.
Trust
but
me,
it could
even
be
a little bit,
even a
people
little bit of
fight
money.
over. Yeah.
Hey, man, I tell you what, I had a buddy of mine that died recently, and I was not privy to everything, but he was worth multi millions of dollars. And a few months before he died, he put everything into an irrevocable trust.
Yeah, that's hard to shake.
And I'm going to tell you, an irrevocable means it can never be changed. And when you do that, that irrevocable trust says he doesn't own anything anymore, period. It's all put into this new vehicle, which has trustees. And in an irrevocable trust, you're not the trustee of your own trust. Somebody else is. Now, you're allowed to get income off of it, but all of a sudden, he's dead. And I got to tell you, there was some people coming out of the woodwork.
Were there some surprises?
And, I think the only thing he did not put in, and he may have done this on purpose, he had one homestead property.
Okay.
And he left that to the kids. The for sale sign went up before he was cold.
Yeah, get it gone.
But, hey.
Yeah, especially if there's multiple kids, because no one's getting the house. They want their share.
They want their portion.
Yeah.
Of course. 340-1590, 340-1590. So, hey, we get new subjects every week.
Well, we've been talking about some of the changes in car insurance.
Yeah.
And I know that there's been some discussion in Tallahassee for this session about making some changes and some adaptations, or maybe even some eliminations of our current PIP rules. And I always thought that PIP was good from its inception, but as in many cases the legal industry had found ways to circumvent the intent of the law where it really doesn't serve its intended purpose. So there may be some changes, and if they come true, then we'll discuss them. But right now, I'm telling you that there are some changes in the air. And in addition to that, as I've been discussing, I'm seeing rates go up, both on homes and both on cars. Now, luckily for us, we've got 45 different companies that do just that.
Right.
We have over 100 in-house, but we got about 45 that just do that. And so we've been spending about half of our time right now moving people from company A to company B, because it's going to save them a good bit of money. In fact, I'm going to go meet with one of my friends after I leave here. She has an older home. Older homes have been hard to place for a while, but we've got some new markets, and we can save her about 40% over what she was paying. The only thing she's going to have to do is get a new wind mitigation and a new 4-point inspection, because it's about $150.
Yeah.
So she'll eat that this year, and then from that point on, she won't see that the big hit. And she wouldn't have even needed a wind mit, except hers is so old that the rules have all changed since she had it done. So they won't take her old wind mitigation. I suspect it has a lot to do with construction and insurance lobbyists convincing Tallahassee to make things tougher to get credits on. But it's always nice to save some money.
Well, it's funny we should say that, because Joe Martek, who used to be a really, really good great driver, no tickets and accidents.
You're getting better, Joe.
Somehow or another, something happened for a while.
It was that red Mustang.
I think I did it. I don't even remember when I did it, but it's not important. But all of a sudden, I'm paying a fortune for car insurance because Joe Martek, nobody wanted me. Well, luckily, I know this guy, Dan Woron, and when my last renewal came up, my insurance was cut down by $150 a month.
Wow.
$150 a month.
That's a nice little change.
And Dan's girl, Barbie, said, Joe, can you please just stay clean until July? We'll get it down again.
That's right.
Because
tickets don't hang there forever, and that's one of the things that we always see those commercials. Oh, we can save you $500.
Right.
Well, that's only if the company you're with now hasn't updated your driving record,
and none of them do.
So if you've had tickets a couple years ago and you haven't seen a big decrease, you ought to give us a call, because there's a good chance that we can save you a ton of money.
Well, what happens is, if you listen, every single automobile commercial on TV says, the average person, we save $300, we save $500, we save $600, we save all kinds. Well, that's the truth, because the people that are looking are not happy with what they're paying, and their driving record got better, so now they're a better risk. But I've never seen an insurance company, I imagine there is one, Dan, someplace, that automatically re-rates people down because they check MVRs, but I've never heard of it. Have you ever seen one?
Well, we do almost that in-house.
I know.
And we do it just the opposite. If your rates went up, a certain percentage, we automatically shop it because we want our customers to know that we are looking out for them. Because let's face it, if I take your premium and reduce it by 30 or 40%, that hits me in the pocket, believe it or not.
Sure.
But I believe if we do that, it keeps any other agency from taking my customer. And I would rather find the right price for that customer anyway. It's the right thing to do.
It is the right thing to do. 340-1590, 340-1590. I just was told, lean forward, quit relaxing.
You were like off in the distance.
I was out here just
your eyes were turning.
You drifted away on the air.
I was starting to glaze over here,
Don't get too comfortable.
Well, I got a sinus infection. You ever had a sinus infection?
Oh, they're terrible.
I've never had one in my entire life. Never. And this
Victoria would say neti pot.
Well, guess what? I went and bought it today because I had one years ago. Remember that was like a fad, these neti pots?
Yes. Well, she would tell you neti pot.
I know. If she was,
it's like waterboarding yourself, Joe.
It's like waterboarding yourself. And I'll tell you, the first time
get better or else.
I couldn't believe it actually worked. But
it does work. Well, I mean, I don't swear by that neti pot, but I use just the saline water, like the ocean spray.
Right.
And I use a similar process. I just flood my sinuses. I had a guy tell me, listen, when you flood it with that saline, he goes, that is the same pH as your body. So if it doesn't burn, it means your body's not out of pH. But if it does burn, it means you have a little infection in there. And let me tell you what, you have an infection.
I've never used it in a neti pot. I think I'd drown myself.
I looked like a chipmunk a few days ago. Band-Aid got huge, so I'm on an antibiotic. When you don't get sick very often, and especially I haven't had an antibiotic in me for 20 or 30 or 40 years, I don't know. All of a sudden, that antibiotic, they're not kind to you always.
No. Well, here's the one thing I have noticed. If I'm sick, and I rarely get sick, but when I get sick and I start feeling better because of the medications, I think to myself, man, I feel so much better. I was really sick. I can't believe how bad I felt.
Yeah.
So for you to take meds, I know you felt bad.
Yep. So I took my last pill this morning, and I still got a little lump here on my sinus, and I was really lopsided. I had a half a chipmunk going here for a while. But,
you looked attractive, Joe.
Well, one side of me looked okay.
Yeah,
I know.
Right.
340-1590, 340-1590. There's other subjects that we can talk about, but I think politics kind of sneaks in.
Well, today's a good day. They're giving Comey the once-over.
Oh, boy.
They're asking him all about, hey, how come you investigated Hillary and forgot about investigating that Russian thing, with him and the Don. So he's trying to squeeze all those answers out. What I heard coming up here, anything that halfway sounded interesting, he said, that's classified, and I can't talk about it in an open discussion like this.
The little part of what I heard, it was like, why were you picking on Hillary?
Yeah.
I mean, that's basically, it was a woman asking questions
Probably
at the time.
Feinstein.
And, like, well, you shouldn't have done that to her kind of thing. And you're like, wait a second.
Listen,
he explained he had two
that
decisions.
She was a poor candidate. Okay, I think that Bernie would have been a better candidate if he'd have got the nod. And from what little bit I have heard and read, it almost sounded like that the Democratic Party was giving her the go-ahead from the inception and keeping him suppressed.
Well,
Well, why was it that the Republicans had 17 candidates in the beginning and they didn't have a whole bunch to pick from?
Right.
Because they threw people up there who weren't going to give her any run for her money at all.
Right.
But surprisingly, Bernie caught on.
Yeah, he did.
He did. I don't agree with
he said it was rigged. He said it was rigged, not just Trump. Yeah. Bernie said it was rigged.
Yeah, I don't agree with a lot of what Bernie did. I do agree with one thing, which is the Medicare for everybody, which I still agree with, and I still think everybody should have.
I just think if they give Medicare to everyone, the quality of what you get is going to come way down.
See, I don't necessarily agree with that, because us old people, everybody 65 and over, I mean, almost every doctor except pediatricians takes Medicare. If they didn't, they wouldn't be in Florida. Mm-hmm. I mean, they're not going to make a buck.
Well, that's kind of like Medicaid, though. Medicaid, you can go see the doctor, but good luck getting a prescription filled.
Okay, now.
Everything you go to get will be denied.
Okay, but with Medicare, you got Plan D, which is prescription coverage.
But once you put everybody on the same plan, do you think the plan will look the same?
I don't think so.
Don't think
the integrity will change.
All I know is this.
I believe so, too.
All I know is this. If they had the exact same program for everybody in America, including every congressman, everybody, there would be concierge doctors just like there are
like
today.
they have today.
That rich people can afford to skip out of the system, and they can pay over and above, and that's fine. You know, rich people have always done that. You know, you're never going to take away the benefits of being rich. I mean, you can't just penalize somebody and say, hey, you're rich, so you have to.
Well, many people, Joe, even in countries that have, government-controlled medicine,
right?
They come to America if they're wealthy for their surgery.
Well, that's because their government-controlled medicine is not so wonderful.
Not so wonderful.
Yeah.
Well, the other side of the coin is, in America, listen, we are the land of milk and honey. We have the best of everything. There's no doubt about it. We've got the best doctors. We've got the best attorneys.
And they'll let you know.
Oh, boy, they'll let you know. And, hey, but everybody in the world has to admit that. Now, that doesn't mean that a surgeon in France or Germany or wherever is not as competent, but by percentages, we have a greater expertise. And there's certain hospitals in this country that have a superior track record to other hospitals.
Of course.
Well,
because
are you saying we don't have any hospitals like that around here?
Wait. Now, here, you have to look at it this way. If you had a classroom filled with doctors, let's say there were 100, they all graduate. Who do you want to go see?
Top or
the
bottom?
Top of the class or the
It
bottom of the
depends
class?
on the school. Depends on the school.
And it depends on the market that will hire them and what that market can afford.
You know, listen.
They're all doctors.
You and I both know people that have tremendous educations that are dumb as a stump.
When it comes to common sense things.
Well, and it may not just be common sense. Like my mother's doctor, I used to get really upset with him. She loved her doctor. Now, you would love him as a next-door neighbor. He was a good-looking, charming guy. She just loved this guy.
Great bedside manner.
Great bedside manner. He had no memory. None. Zippo.
That's what a computer and a little
but
recorder
open the chart.
So
before you walk in and see that patient.
She's in the hospital dying of lung cancer. She's going to live maybe another month or two. And that was her choice. She didn't want to go through 2 years of agony. She just decided to go relatively quick. Hospice got involved. It's not a bad thing.
It was her choice.
It was her choice. So she's got her meds lined up on her table, and one of them was Lipitor. Mm-hmm. I says, Mom, why are you taking Lipitor? She goes, for my cholesterol. I said, Mom, you're dying of lung cancer. You don't need to take that anymore. She goes, oh, yeah, I do. I said, Mom, why? She goes, because my doctor said it's for my cholesterol. Mom, the nurse comes in. She says, yeah, you really don't need to take that.
Come to think of it.
So then the doctor comes in, and being the sweet, lovely person that I am, I say, why do you have my mother on Lipitor? And he opens up the chart and looks and says, for her cholesterol. And I said, she's dying of lung cancer. He goes, oh, yeah, you don't need to take that anymore. Right. Well, that kind of worries me.
I'm surprised he didn't say, well, just finish this bottle and you don't have to take any more.
Well, same mother. She's taking all these different meds. So, and they have different sites now, but way back, Dr. Koop, who used to be Surgeon General of the United States, he had a site, and he'd say, give us all these prescriptions and the milligrams and that you're taking, and they plug it into the computer, and they come back with a printout and says,
you're killing yourself.
You're killing yourself, or this is good or bad or indifferent. And basically, I had the printout. It said, hey, if you're taking this one, don't take that one. I go with her to the doctor, and he goes,
Didn't know that.
Changed that prescription.
Yeah.
I did that to a buddy of mine who died 6 months after I did this with him, and I went to 2 different sites, and both of them came to the same conclusion. If you're taking this one, don't take that one. And he wouldn't change. Now, quite honestly, he was done. He was at the end of his...
He didn't see a need in
his
changing.
shelf life was over as far as he was concerned. He wasn't a Twinkie anymore. He was ready to cash in. Life got onerous for him.
But that should be a great indication to people that they should be their own best self-advocate if you can. If you can be and have the ability, you should know what you're taking, why you're taking it, and don't just assume the doctor knows everything. Because you know what? Not all doctors are geniuses.
No.
They just have some training. Okay. And my dad used to say,
and they got a pill for that.
And I always use my dad as an example. He goes, son, that's why they call it a practice, because they're always practicing, trying to figure out what to do.
Well, the other joke is,
I believe that if you go into the doctor totally well and you complain about something, You'll walk out with a prescription.
I know.
It's pretty
But
easy.
if you never go to the doctor, you'll never be sick because you don't want to.
I like that theory. I like that.
Well, there are people afraid to go to doctors for fear they'll get something.
That's right.
I mean, it's
Well, today though, you go for one little thing, and you're going to end up going for an MRI and an X-ray
They
and
pass
this
you all
test
over
and that.
town.
I mean, you're going to go for a whole barrage of tests.
Yeah.
well, yes, and here comes again. Back to competency. There's many different. I thank you, Lord. I've been lucky. The body at some point says, we don't care how lucky you are. We're gonna get even with you. So when that happens, now you make the choice. Hey, do I get on all of these different prescriptions and drugs, or do I get ready to cash in? Because quality of life is high on my list right now.
Right.
I mean, listen, the boat needs to go to the Bahamas, and I don't want it to go without me.
Well, hey, listen, I don't mind fighting for good health
Right.
if it means taking a few meds or whatever.
Right.
But it's like we talked about earlier about, having it where they unplug you.
Yeah.
Okay, I've already told, and I'll say it right here in the ear. If I get hurt real bad, I want you to hook me up to the machine for a short period of time.
Right.
So my body can maybe recover. And then I want you to whisper in my ear, hey, we're going to unplug you, Dan. You got to make it or you're gone.
Right.
Unplug it and kiss me goodbye. I want to have a chance for the doctors to save me.
Of course.
But I don't want to live on machines.
No.
I don't.
340-1590, 340-1590. We run through different subjects from time to time.
Yeah, we do.
But I'm looking at our boy that's running our country right now, and I'm trying to think. It doesn't look like things are moving in his direction, and I'm thinking there might be a strategy behind this that says, let's wait till the midterm elections, and we might be able to blast out a few extra senators and congressmen and get more of a majority on our side,
And
so
they
we
aren't
can.
necessarily going to be on the left.
Yep. We'll see what happens, because it could backfire. There could be people that
I'm not sure what's going on because they oh my gosh, he's going to have it's a majority. The Republicans are running everything. So then why is anything a problem?
Yeah.
Well, he's not getting cooperation from his own party that he should because he hasn't drained that person out of the swamp yet.
There you go.
That's it in a nutshell. I mean, if you think about the power that they should be exerting, and they're not, that's what gives people like me a little apprehension, saying, hey, you know what? I don't care what you have, an R or a D behind your name. You're not much different.
Okay, but then now you have to go back to like the senators and say, Senator so-and-so, you're one person, and you're standing in the way of what the American people want? How arrogant is that?
Well, he needs to go, but there's no term limit. He should go.
Well, we do have elections, though. We do have elections.
Well, and we've said it before, Joe. Vote the rascals out.
Look at drain the swamp is what it's called. I think he's accumulated a tremendous basis of qualified, extremely intelligent people around him.
But they have to be able to implement what they want to get done.
Yeah.
And they haven't been able to accomplish it because they don't have the cooperation of the House and the Senate. And the House and the Senate both said, give us the White House and we'll get this done for you.
Yeah.
And we've given them this and we've given them that. And now we've given them the
We're gonna
executive
see. We're
branch.
gonna see.
And something has to happen soon. And I'm hoping that in the next, 6, 8, 9 months, we'll see something. Let's face it, it's been 100 days. 100 days is a short time to rewrite all these problems, but he's got a good basis started, and I'm happy with that.
Yep.
I'm just hoping that he builds on that, like you were saying.
Yep. 340-1590, 340. Even Bulldog didn't call today, But by the way, if you don't want to talk to us on the radio, which is what it sounds like, you can call the station anytime during the week, 340-1590. They'll take your name and number and have us call you, or they'll give you our numbers and have you call them. Remember this, the group consists of Dan Woron, independent insurance agent, Greg Fasula, attorney, Victoria Lloyd, Remax of Stewart, Mike Paulus, mortgage broker, and Joe Martek, financial advisor.
And I know, Joe, that people do listen.
Oh, yeah.
Because every day somebody calls me at the office and says, hey, I heard you on the radio.
Yeah, I get it. Thank you, Lord, that we've got a pretty good following of people, and some are regular callers and that we get to play with and pick on each other a little bit. One of the things about, I think, all of us, and especially me, I like sparring with people and playing, And when I get a client of mine that I can have fun with on top of doing business together and helping them do what they need, like Bulldog, he's kind of fun to play with. Because Bulldog, he knows I drink single malt scotches, so he bought a good bottle of Macallan to lure me over.
Your partner in crime, Joe.
That's it. This was good. Talk about money. And I was with a client yesterday, and they're pretty substantial. And I said, rather than preaching, what do you think about the market, or giving people what my opinion is, I said, well, what do you think about the market? He said, well, Joe, we don't pay a lot of attention to it, but it seems like what we do read and hear, the market's doing awfully well. And I said, yeah, it is. I said, now what happens is, though, when you start looking at the overall market, sometimes you have to say there are gauges that are put in to measure the market.
Now, remember, we've all been taught, you buy low and you sell high.
Right.
Now, I consider this a high side of the market, but I don't have a crystal ball to say how high it's going to get. Maybe this is the low side of the high.
See, we don't know for sure. But I said, to people, I said,
well, if it's higher than what you entered the market at, then it would be time to get your money.
And,
that's a good time to consider. But then there's also the time frame. How long is your window?
Well, you're going to wait until it goes back down.
Well, the other side of the coin is here comes when is the time when it's up and when is the time when it's down. Now, you have to be...
It's hard to time the market.
Very, very, very hard. So normally what I've been telling people now is by almost everybody's gauge, the market is full. At the very least, it's full. By many gauges, it's over full. So I said, hey, err on the side of caution and don't get greedy and stay in these 5 and 6% instruments. We can always get out of the 5 or 6% instruments, but to dink along making 5 and 6% without taking undue risk, it just seems to make more sense. And then, hey, let's face it, if something happens, all of a sudden it creates this opportunity, or an individual company comes along. Dan, I get probably 2-3 times a week people talking to me about marijuana stocks. And I'm saying, and I said, I just don't know what's going to happen.
I don't know what's going to happen with that.
I look at
now, what do they do about the money earned with that? Because that the money earned in the marijuana field, you can't put it in a federal bank.
And I was actually having a discussion with a friend of mine about that.
It's a cash business.
No, but there's medical marijuana, which is 100 different rules.
Okay.
Under medical supervision.
Okay. We're not talking about that.
I'm not talking recreational, which you can't put it in a federal bank.
No, you can't.
You can put it in your mattress.
Put it in your mattress.
You can't take it home.
340-1590, 340-1590. And Bulldog, he listened. He felt bad for me.
You guilted him.
I guilted him into calling. Mm-hmm. And Bulldog, you're on the radio.
Hey, guys.
Hey, what's up?
I'm telling you, the marijuana stock's going to go to pot. So
bada bing, bada bum. Way to go.
You don't store your money in a bank. You roll it. I mean, you just use it as roller.
Oh! I've got my feet up off the ground.
I'm dating myself.
Aren't you though? Right.
Well, it's home inspection day. What fun, guys.
Well, that's good. So your new buyers coming in, they're going to inspect the house, and what they find wrong with it, you'll fix or negotiate, right?
There you go. And so that's where we're at, and still looking in Palm Coast. She's up there now.
That's a nice area. You'll like living up there.
Yeah, except in the wintertime, it's snow and freezing rain.
It does get cold there, doesn't it? Colder than here.
Look, I moved here from Illinois. It really doesn't bother me.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. It'll be tropical.
I have to ask, where in Illinois are you from?
Well, little town north of Springfield, south of Bloomington.
Okay.
And it's called?
Lincoln.
Okay.
Lincoln.
Yes.
Our producer is also from Illinois.
I'm from Chicago.
So, but Chicago, she's
spent many a day in Chicago.
She's a South Side girl.
I lived for a while in Rockford too, the second largest city in Illinois.
I'm so happy
Worked
for
there too.
Other than that,
yeah, for some tool and die company. Yeah.
When are you gonna when's your closing on this house?
June 15th.
Hey, that's good. Now you haven't found a new house yet, though, huh?
Nope.
Well, hey, but you're working on it. All right, my man. Listen, we got another caller. And Bulldog.
Right, I'll let you guys go.
Thanks for going to pot for us.
You got it.
See you, Bulldog. Anyway, 340-1590, 340-1590. And Jeff, it's Joe Martek. You're on the radio.
Joe, good morning, and good morning, everyone.
Hey, Jeff.
Yeah,
Good morning.
Good morning. Not a question, but I just wanted to call and say thank you for the program. I'm a first-time listener this morning, and absolutely love the show, the breadth and depth of knowledge, and the chemistry between the hosts. And
I'm sorry.
absolutely love it.
Well, good. We
Well,
appreciate
Jeff,
that.
that we really appreciate the compliment because we don't get many.
That's why I chuckled.
But, our producer, Ms. Veronica, she's been doing these shows with us for how many years?
Since you guys came around.
Which is a long time.
A long time.
Yeah, and,
yes.
and
But
she's
yeah.
almost like a part of the team anymore because she knows about as much as
I have
we.
a hard time keeping my mouth shut.
Well, I've never seen that in a woman in my whole life.
It's a gender thing.
A woman that doesn't talk much. My God.
And I do control the buttons over here, so
No, okay.
be
And
nice.
she's actually gorgeous too, Jeff.
Great. Wow. Well, I love it. Again, first-time listener this morning, and the breadth and depth of knowledge about everything from estate planning to insurance to politics, economics, everything. Just absolutely loved it. And I said, I never call into radio shows, but this time I'm going to because I just love these guys. And so I'm going to be a listener from now on.
Jeff, we really
Sounds
appreciate it. Now, where do I send the check? Hey, Jeff, thanks so much. We got a couple minutes left. I want to thank you so much for calling in and saying nice things about us. We don't, like I said, don't get it very often. 340-1590, 340-1590. So,
Super.
I'm back on my soapbox a little bit about, and I'm talking to a lot of people about staying in this conservative mode. I've taken leaps of faith before for different people, and yes, we've done real well from time to time. But I'm just a bit skeptical right now because the market has been so hot.
And Joe, it depends on what stage of life you're in.
Yeah.
I mean, let's say I was in my retirement stage.
Yeah.
Okay. I think I would be gravitating more towards some sort of fund that would give me a guaranteed rate of return and eliminate most of the market conditions. If I was in my late 20s or 30s, I'd be rolling the dice. So
Absolutely.
it all depends on where you're at.
Take
in
some
life.
risk, and that's exactly what happens. I've got people that come in the door with $10,000, and like I say, they're 30 years old, and they say, "Well, that $10,000 is never going to do anything for me, Joe, but I'd like to make some money with it."
You'd be surprised what it'll do for you over the next 30 or 40 years.
Over a long period of time, there's no doubt about it. If we use the rule of
Well, you got to start somewhere,
Absolutely.
right?
well, there's a rule of 72. It's a real nice, easy one, and
That's
that
when
is,
you're 72-year-old?
Yeah, boy. You divide the interest rate into 72, and that's how long it takes to double your money. So let's take 6%. That's 12 years. 6 times 12 is 72. But if you're making 10%, that's 7.2 years to double your money. So literally what a lot of people can do, and I was talking to this client yesterday, we're doing the 5 and 6% numbers. I said, as things progress, what we can do is take portions of this and put it into things that might be doing a little bit
You know
better.
what? I did the math wrong. We're really out of time.
Thank you so much. We got to say
Sorry.
goodbye until next week.
Yeah, that's
Bye,
kind
guys.
Some producer. Adios.
You've been listening to the Team Martek Hour. The Team Martek Hour is a paid program. The content was provided by the advertiser. WPSL, its staff, management, and ownership were not responsible for its content. Investment involves risk. Prior to making any investment, an investor should meet suitability requirements. Past results are not necessarily indicative of future performance. Neither the opinions expressed nor the information provided constitutes a recommendation to purchase or provide investment advice. The material presented is not a substitute for obtaining professional advice from a qualified person or firm. Securities offered through Centaurus Financial, member FINRA and SIPC. Tune in again next Wednesday at 11:05 for the Team Martek Hour here on WPSL 1590.